Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it about another minute or so. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Lauren Smith with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great webinar lined up for you. Before we begin, I would just like to remind everyone that we are recording today's webinar and will make it available later this evening on community.franchise.org. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please add them to the Q&A box, and they will be addressed toward the end. Today, we have the first installment of a three-part educational webinar series sponsored by SOCi. Today's topic is Search is ubiquitous and local, but behaviors are changing. Here to provide today's discussion is Damian Rollison, Director of Market Insights at SOCi, and Nicole DiNicola, Vice President of Product Marketing at SOCi. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to SOCi for sponsoring today's webinar. I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Lauren, and thanks, Nicole, for joining me, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm Damian. If you want to go to the next slide, you get to see our names in case you didn't catch those details and our titles. We're the supposed experts today, guiding you through some content that I hope will be interesting around search and social and the way they are intersecting in new and exciting ways, in fact, these days, including some research findings that we've recently published that will tell you how to get to more information about, but we're going to give you the highlights of those things today. So you're going to hear me talking mostly towards the beginning, but Nicole, if you want to say hello, since you're here as well.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Nicole DiNicola, and I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. And Nicole will take over towards the end, and we'll try to have a little bit of a conversation as well. But to launch into it, let's go to the next one. So SOCi produces research in various areas, and one thing that we're really excited about this year is a new research study, which we are intending is going to be repeated annually, actually, but this is the first year that we're producing what we call the Consumer Behavior Index. It was originally published in February, and we'll show you towards the end where you can actually download the full study and kind of explore the data. But this is a study where we asked more than 1,000 US consumers spread out across the country about their habits and preferences when it comes to interacting with digital tools to find and discover local businesses. And I think, this initial couple of stats is really just a reinforcement of behaviors that we're already pretty well aware of. And in fact, all of us are consumers, and we probably do many of these things ourselves. But we did ask consumers how often they use digital tools to look up information about local businesses. And amongst the various answers, the kind of summary is that 80% of consumers do that sort of thing at least once a week, and 32% said that they use digital tools to look up local businesses on at least a daily basis, if not even more frequently. Obviously, some of these things differ according to the frequency of need. You may not need car repair as often as you need a place to get coffee. You may already know where your local coffee shop is, but when you're traveling, you need a local search tool to find that in the town that you might be in. And so, these patterns obviously differ in many complex ways, but the summary is that everybody uses local search tools to look up local businesses. Let's keep going. But we wanted to know which tools. And, the summary, the title, the headline is, it is still a Google world. When we asked consumers which smartphone apps or websites have you used in the last 30 days to look up information about local businesses or a local business, we found that Google search was the most commonly cited. So consumers in this question could check more than one thing, any tool that they may have used in the last 30 days for this purpose. Google search was chosen by 72%, Google Maps by 51%. You can see the other percentages here, but what I really kind of want to highlight in this chart is the surprisingly strong rankings for some social platforms. Right away in position 3, you can see that Facebook was chosen by 49% of the respondents. And the 4th and 5th ranked platforms are Instagram and TikTok, followed by Snapchat. In fact, we don't get to another, what we might call a local directory or a navigation platform until Apple Maps kind of in the middle of the chart. Now, all of these tools are used by a large block of consumers. None of them had, 0 votes basically, but the winner overall, before you start looking at any kind of breakdowns by things like age group, is in fact Google. And again, this is kind of a reinforcing finding. We weren't surprised to see that Google's platforms were going to win. Most people think intuitively of Google as the place where you go to enter searches like Mexican restaurant near me, gas station near me. They've cornered that market. At least that's the assumption that we might have going into this. But if you keep going, you will see the demographic breakdown. This is the same question, but it's broken down by age groups. So if you see what the age groups are down along the bottom, 18 to 24-year-olds, 25 to 34, etc. And then the same results in the same order, or in the order of Google Search, Google Maps. We took out some of the sites. We're really focusing on the top sites in the list that we just saw. And many of them, again, are social sites. And I know it takes a minute to kind of absorb what's happening in this chart, but what I want you to really focus on is the youngest consumers, 18 to 24. The highest bar, therefore the most popular platform, is that purple bar, 67%, which is Instagram. The second highest bar, 62%, the sort of teal colored one on the right-hand side, is for TikTok. The third highest bar on the left, the kind of navy blue one, is Google Search. So in other words, amongst 18 to 24-year-olds, Instagram and TikTok are more popular than Google for looking up information about local businesses. That may not sound like it, or maybe you already are saying, wow, that's amazing. When people really get what that stat is saying, it is kind of an earth-shattering finding. In fact, to place it in a little bit of context, about 2 years ago, Google released some research. They actually were, a Google representative was speaking at a conference, and he mentioned, as a kind of an aside, that social platforms were growing for search, and that about 40% of Gen Z, according to Google's own data, would prefer to use Instagram or TikTok to look up a place to have lunch over Google Maps or Google Search. So when that stat was first released, a lot of people said, that can't be true. How would you even do that? How would you look up a place to have lunch on TikTok? And yet, our findings a couple of years later demonstrate that those numbers are in fact growing. So whereas 40% might have chosen Instagram or TikTok in 2 years ago, now we find that amongst Gen Z, 67% choose Instagram, 62% are choosing TikTok. And so this is really a generational shift that we're seeing, where younger consumers especially, but as you read across the age groups, significant portions of consumers in older demographics as well are using social platforms, not in the way that we're acclimated to understand, how TikTok works. We hear a lot about the TikTok feed and its special algorithm where you don't have to like and follow things. You're just going to get this sort of passive feed of content that's going to appeal to your interests. You're just taking it in almost like watching television, except in the form of these short videos. Yes, that is the thing that made TikTok popular in the first place, and the really seismic shift that TikTok represents as a communication channel is defined by that feature. But because there's all this content out there on every topic, people are using TikTok as a search engine. And if you don't believe me, ask an 18-year-old, ask a 22-year-old. You will find that, in fact, they're using TikTok to look up everything, not just local businesses. That's just a one aspect of a larger trend. Looking up information of what's in the news, looking up historical information, and also recommendations from peers. The appeal of the social platform for local search is that if I'm looking for a recommendation for a restaurant or any other need, I think it's really starting to spread across many different verticals now. What I'm going to get from TikTok that I don't get from Google, or at least not as directly, is a presentation that is visual, highly visual. If I'm recommending a restaurant to you, I'm going to actually show you what the atmosphere of the restaurant looks like, what the dish I'm having might look like, and I'm also going to show you myself, so you can gauge somebody's sincerity, authenticity. You can feel that this might be somebody whose opinion I can relate to, who's like me in some way, who's telling me about this experience that they've had and making this recommendation. It has a kind of an immediacy and an engagement appeal that reading a review and so on, it may not have. And so that pattern is really an important shift. And what we would want to advocate, and I'll tell you a little bit about some a report that we've written that helps to make sense of all of this, is that businesses need to start paying attention to TikTok. And I know we all, and Instagram as well, I don't want to skip over them, but I know we are kind of living in an era when there's just been a bill passed in Congress that may cause TikTok to be banned, et cetera. But we know that that's a prospect that is long term, not short term, and also that the demand signal that's been created by the popularity of short form video is very, very likely to survive any particular platform, being around in a year or two. I think that what it really demonstrates is that younger consumers want this kind of content, and they want to get their information, including local search information, from social platforms, and brands really need to pay attention to that and change their behaviors as a result. So, and I don't know, Nicole, did you want to comment on this at all before we move on?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think the biggest question we get, or the question we get most often when we talk about this, is like, how? Like, how do you search on TikTok? How do you search on Google Maps? Like, what does that even look like? These platforms are getting really smart and clever with it. It's anything from like hashtags to, you can just kind of speak in normal language and type something in a search bar within one of these applications and get what you're looking for. I was talking to someone a couple days ago who was like traveling and needed to get her hair done, but you need a very specific way. She's looking for a salon, but she could just type into the search bar of TikTok of the specific hair style that she gets, plus the city, and she gets all these recommendations with like vivid content and examples, and it makes it really easy to find what you're looking for. So same thing with like Google Maps. If you're on a road trip and you need to find something on the way that's local, you're gonna go on the map and see what's gonna be there for you too. So if some of these areas are kind of new for you, like how you do search in there, like I encourage you to, ask around, get creative, try to figure out how your consumers or people that are looking for local things across these different platforms.
Yeah, and I want to bring up something as well in relation to the usage patterns of social and search platforms. If you once again sort of take a look at that 18 to 24 group, Google is the third most popular. And I think one of the things you can kind of infer from these findings, and it makes sense if you think about it, is that you might look up a recommendation on Instagram or TikTok, especially on TikTok. There's not a lot of actionability, if that's a word, in the content that you're going to find. So you might, for instance, look up, places to have a romantic dinner in San Francisco. You might get a ton of great recommendations. You might find a restaurant that you'd really like to visit, but where's the phone number, or are they open on, Sunday evening, or do they have reservations available? You're going to need Google for that, right? So the usage pattern, the purchase journey here, is very likely one where you're jumping from one platform to another. And I think amongst the younger demographics, you can see how high every bar is, really, all the way from 18 to 44. It doesn't start, the social platforms don't start dropping off until the older demographics. I think the height of every bar really shows you that younger consumers are used to using different platforms for different needs, and they're very comfortable with that. They don't have that app fatigue that we talk about, right? They're very happy to say, this platform is good for this other one is good for this, and to jump around. And before we move on, we actually had a couple of different questions that I think we might just go ahead and address now. Rachel asks whether LinkedIn was included in the survey. We didn't include LinkedIn. We wanted to kind of bound it in some ways, so we're not, asking about dozens of things. And we think of LinkedIn a little bit more as a B2B platform, although it is very important for that channel. The another question from Debbie is about YouTube being included, and she cites that YouTube is usually the second most popular search engine in overall stats about search engine popularity. Totally true. We don't see YouTube being used as often for looking up information about local businesses, although of course businesses of any kind can publish YouTube content and gain engagement from that. But in terms of, a place to have lunch, or get my, my sink leaky sink fixed, or hire an attorney or anything like that, we think of these other channels as being more commonly used for that particular kind of use case, if that makes sense. And then Roger asks, are these stats similar when looking at other businesses, services, et cetera? We actually did, I'm not including the chart in this presentation, but if you download the complete consumer behavior index, we did ask people which different types of B2C verticals have you searched for in the last 30 days, and it's a very broad range. Also determined largely by frequency of need. So it won't surprise you to hear that, for instance, restaurants are the top choice for businesses that you've searched for in the last 30 days. But even something like banks, which you might think would be way down the list, I think 1 in 5 consumers has looked up a bank online in the last 30 days. And many other verticals were included in the study. So the full study will give you a better picture of that. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I think we're going to do a poll now that we've been telling you so much about Instagram and TikTok and the growth in their importance for local search and local marketing. We'd like to ask you, does your company have an Instagram or TikTok strategy? And the answers are yes, no, not sure, no, but we definitely should. So if we could go ahead and launch that poll. We're going to give you a second or two to make a decision, maybe 20 or 30 seconds to think about it. I know that this may be a very hot topic this year. This is something that we're hearing a lot of brands and franchises talk about, and yet it's also something that some may feel is not relevant to them. And yet we'd like to make the argument that just about every vertical needs to at least be investigating what's happening on TikTok in relation to their line of business. So if you'd like to make a choice in the next couple of seconds, go ahead and vote if you haven't already. Okay, can we see the results? Aha, interesting. So the highest vote, the last time we've done this poll before, we got a lot more no's and not sures, but in this audience, 64% say that you do have an Instagram or TikTok strategy. I wonder if we had asked just about TikTok, if the votes would have been so high. Instagram may be a little more of a known quantity here, but it is good to hear that 64% say that they have a strategy. 21% say no, 7% not sure, and another 7% voted no, but we definitely should. All right. Well, thank you for answering that question. Helps to take the pulse of the group for sure. Let's go ahead and move on. So one more finding, just to kind of sum up the truth about social media. 97% of consumers, according to our Consumer Behavior Index, find new products, services, or businesses using social media. And I'd like to make the point that Facebook, although we're talking a little bit more about Instagram and TikTok so far, Facebook is in fact the most popular social platform across all demographics and still the largest social platform globally by quite a bit. So in terms of prioritization, Facebook, if you don't have a Facebook strategy that's active and working for you, or if you need improvements there, that actually may still be a higher priority, although we certainly think Instagram and TikTok are also important. A lot of this discovery and purchasing behavior was kind of formed within the Facebook ecosystem and largely on Instagram as well. It's shifting over to TikTok, and TikTok, of course, wants to drive commerce on the platform. That's a big push from them right now. So I think that's going to be a growth area, but certainly think of it more as a broad multi-platform conversation. We can go to the next one. So we wrote a white paper called Unlock the Secret to Social Media Success, the Power of Localization, that we want to tell you about. And this is a report that helps to make sense of the rise of social platforms for local search, as well as some strategic recommendations that we want you to be aware of. And I'm going to actually focus in on Facebook a bit as we go through this. But the report shows you how to leverage social media to scale your marketing. What is this thing called localization, and why is it important in social media? We don't mean localization as a buzzword. This is really a very specific thing that we're talking about, where many companies have very robust social media strategies, very sophisticated, and often driving huge engagement. But sometimes there's a kind of a neglect to apply those strategies at the local level. So what we're really hoping to advocate for and convince you of is that there's a ton of power in making sure in local markets that your social media strategy is very strong and that it's properly differentiated for each of those markets. And so part of what we want to show you is that localized posting, where each store or office or dealer or agent, whatever you call your locations, is actually posting its own content that's a little bit different from everybody else's content, is better than this other thing called waterfall posting, which we'll talk about in a second, and how to amplify your social media efforts with AI. So the report has some interesting proprietary data that is going to help you get more benefit from your social platforms. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide, and we'll dive in. But before we do that, let's ask one more poll question. Does your company waterfall post on Facebook? We're going to talk about waterfall posting a bit, but before we do, we want to know the answer to that question, if we could go ahead and launch that poll. And if you're not sure what waterfall posting is, you can choose that third option. So let's just take a few seconds to decide how you want to vote. All right, this one's hopefully a little simpler. If you don't know, then you can obviously, as I say, choose the third choice. But if you do, you only have two choices. So let's go ahead and see those results. Interesting. Okay, I'm glad that 58% chose what's that, because we were about to explain it. Followed by 26% saying yes, they do waterfall post, and 16% saying no. Great. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide and explain what is this thing called waterfall posting. And we're going to show you two examples here of social posts on Facebook that look very similar to each other. They're both from a client of ours called The Human Bean, which is a coffee franchise. And yet they are a little bit different. So this company actually has a kind of a mix of both, and they've been able to demonstrate the difference in effectiveness between the two types. So this is a Facebook thing. Waterfall posting means that you post to your corporate Facebook page, and you have a structure, sometimes they call it parent-child, where the corporate Facebook page is linked to all of the individual store pages in a relationship where when you post on the parent page, the corporate page, all the store pages inherit that content. So they basically get copies of all the same, exact same post shows up in all the store pages and in the corporate page. That sounds good, and it's very easy to do, and Facebook makes it very easy. The problem is that the engagement that you generate from waterfall posting is shared across all of your locations. So this particular post looks like it got 48 reactions, which is actually, looks pretty good. But if you have 48 locations, that's one reaction per location. So you're actually not building any local engagement. It's kind of an image of engagement that isn't really borne out at the local level. It's almost like astroturfing in politics, if you know that term. Whereas localized posting, you can tell the difference because it says The Human Being of Roseburg at the top of this post. I know that's subtle, but that's how you can tell that it's a localized post. That's where each individual location posts its own content. And therefore, although this post generated a little bit less engagement, apparently, in fact, every single reaction, comment, and share is just for that one location. So in fact, the aggregate value of the engagement that you're generating is much, much higher with localized posting than you could ever achieve with waterfall posting. And I'll quantify that for you in a second. Let's keep going. So The Human Being, because they are doing both, we were able to assess what is the difference. And in fact, their engagements are 73% higher when posting localized content versus waterfall posting. So it's again a huge impact to use the localized method. And let's go to the next slide. Overall, we looked at lots and lots of our client data, and what it adds up to is a significant difference. So the average number of engagements for a localized post is 7.1, but for waterfall posts, when you adjust for the fact that those engagements are shared across every single location, for each location, they only generate 0.1 engagements on average. So that difference is actually 71 times greater engagement for localized posts. And secondarily, your follower count is higher. So for waterfall posting, the average follower count in our data set was 944 followers. Those are people who have liked your page and opted to see your content in their feeds. Whereas the average follower count for those doing localized posting was 1,105. So that's a 17% increase in follower count. as a secondary benefit for localized posting. The engagement is more important because that's conversion oriented. Those people may be buying something from you because of the content that they see, but those followers, those local audiences are super important as well. So you're going to see both of those benefits from localized posting. So yes, let's go ahead and go on to the next slide, and I think we're going to turn it over to Nicole.
Yeah. So if going through all of the great content that Damien just spoke about, you may be realizing like, okay, localizing for every one of my locations is great. I can realize that it gives you the results, but like, how on earth do I do that? If I have hundreds of locations, how can I have a separate social media strategy for each one? Or how can I, put this onto my local owners to do this? But it's like, it's another full-time job for everybody, right? It's not easy to do, and not every franchise owner is an expert in social media. So that there are lots of different solutions and tools you can use to help with this. And in our case at SOCi, we pull in one of our friends, the genius AI lever of our platform, to really help you with that. We try to combine all the things that you really care at the local level, right? Our platform looks at like what's trending, what kind of content is out there, what are posts you've done in the past, what's the weather at that location. There's so many different signals that we pull in to analyze and to understand, what would really resonate in at each one of your different locations. Plus bringing in, any branding rules you have, your voice, your tone, your photos, anything like that. And then we can auto-populate an entire social media calendar for you for each location. We can pull in some corporate posts too. We can make them all local. You can really customize it to what you need. But we hear you that this is a struggle, and that's why we've helped to build a platform that can help you start to do this and see a lot of those benefits that Damien just mentioned there. So it's just a little bit of background of like, if you were shocked by how amazing localizing your post is, but have no idea on how to get there, we did want to show you a little bit of how we're helping our customers do that through our own SOCi platform. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to kind of like bring it full circle back to what Damien was talking about at the beginning as it relates to search, because in order to be found, which is everyone's goal, right? You need more traffic, you need more people in your stores, you need more people to show up at your locations, increase revenue, all of that foot traffic. Localizing that social media strategy is also going to boost your search strategy so that all of the people who are trying to find you can. We know now, 2 out of 3 local businesses are invisible to people who are searching locally. So it's because it's all so interconnected. If you try to find coffee shops with Wi-Fi near me, if you go to the next slide, you're going to get lots of results, right? That are typically pretty localized. But that search is not just pulling from your what you think of your typical search channels. If you go to the next slide, they pull from reviews as well. So you have to think about your reputation strategy. Are the things that are being said in reviews also helping you come up in search? And then if you go to the next slide, as people are searching, you're getting results from social media. You're getting results from review pages, from organic search, from your individual store pages that may come up. So in order to drive the business forward or get the results that you want to see, you really have to think about all these things together. Is your social media strategy helping you be found locally? Is your reputation strategy, your reviews, are you responding in a timely manner to help make sure that you're showing up in search? All of these things really come together to help all of your locations succeed, beat out the competition, get found first, and help drive people to your stores. Next slide. And it's also constantly changing, right? It's become almost impossible to keep up with SEO changes, Google changes, category changes that are happening almost daily. If you're doing that if you were a corporate brand, just doing that at your one corporate location is so hard. And then extrapolate that to all of the locations you may have, it's almost impossible. I think if you click one more. Yeah. And then, we have also the social aspect of it that's making it even more complicated. If you see here, like TikTok is actively prompting people to search within their platform. So, you know, we completely understand that this is a lot to keep up with, and which is, you know, one of the reasons why SOCi exists and why we're great partners with IFA. If you go to the next slide, I definitely don't want to be too salesy. I totally understand that, but just wanted to show you how it all comes together on our platform. If this is something that you're interested in checking out or want to make this easier for you, we can help, you know, do the work of, you know, 1,000 marketers, or, you know, give you that trained marketer and data scientist at every single one of your locations through our platform. We can help you understand all of that local data and put it into action across search or social reviews, you know, advertising on social, whatever it might be that really would benefit your business.
Thank you, Nicole. So to round this out, I just wanted to make sure that if you guys are interested in the full results that I was referencing earlier in our Consumer Behavior Index, which was just released recently, you can scan that QR code and go ahead and download that report. We will also make a link available for you to download the social Unlocking the Power of Localization in Social Media, which we were just referencing earlier. So both of those are going to be hopefully super useful for you both to understand what's happening with consumer trends, things that you need to be paying attention to that may have been flying under your radar. If you don't think TikTok applies to you, surprise, it probably does. And also about the localization strategy that we think is going to be the one that really will move the needle for you in building audiences and engagement in local markets. And of course, as Nicole's been describing, you know, so she can help with all of that. But fundamentally, we want you to just be aware of what we think are the most important strategies to pursue. With that in mind, if you do have any additional questions about the content, we have a few minutes to answer questions. So please go ahead and use that Q&A tool to type in any questions that you might have. Oh, Debbie's saying that there's an error when you hit the QR code. Sorry about that, Debbie. If there's something that we need to address there, we will make sure that we do that. Yes, somebody else says as well. Okay, it looks like we've got an issue with that QR code. Apologies about that. We will make sure that you get links to all of the content after the webinar, and please and thank you for letting us know that there's an issue. Sorry that that's true. Let's see. Lauren, Wendy's asking about missing the first few minutes, and will there be a link to the presentation or the recording? Can you give us some information about that?
Yes, there's going to be a post-webinar email, and all of that information will be included.
Okay, great. That sounds good. And then let's see. There's a couple of questions about, sorry if you guys can hear my dogs barking. They just started going crazy in the other room. So our target audience asks one of the attendees is not the younger generation. Do you suggest we still have a strategy for social platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok? That's actually a good opportunity to kind of reiterate and sort of round up some of what I was saying earlier. Sorry, I'm just gonna shut my door really quick. Sorry about that noise. Okay, so the target audience not being the younger generation, yeah, I think you need to be aware that especially with TikTok, that the user base is mostly oriented around the younger demographics these days. And if that's not your target audience, I would say in terms of priorities, you probably want to think about Facebook first, Instagram second, and TikTok would be third. However, I don't know if you've heard about old talk. This is something, you know, there's book talk, there's like different TikTok like interest groups basically that are out there. And the one that people are talking about a lot is old talk. And I hate to be depressing about this, but apparently the article that I read this week about that topic, old talk is anybody older than 25, which is like ridiculous. But apparently those are the old people who use TikTok. And anyway, the point is it's a growing group. There are a lot of older people on TikTok nowadays, and the impression that might have been formed that it's teenagers dancing and lip syncing, that's kind of like what it's all about. That's a kind of like a years ago, very outmoded impression, right? There's a lot of content about every conceivable thing, and very important to know that. And so again, no matter which demographic you're trying to appeal to, I would encourage you to at least download the app if you don't have it. Check out, do some searches for keywords that are important to your industry and see what kind of content is out there, and you may be very surprised. We had another question, maybe for Nicole. Are there any video tutorials on how this Social Genius tool works for creating localized content with the library and the brand, specifically for how this may work over APIs? We've got a system in place, but wondering if this could be better. I guess just questions about how to get deeper with Genius Social, Nicole.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can go to our website, meetsoci.com, and we have an entire webpage dedicated to Genius Social and a lot of our social offerings that you can dig in there. And if you need something further, if you wanted to see a demo or get on a quick call to see how that works, we have, you can click get a demo and someone can walk you through it too.
Awesome. There's a couple of other questions, but I feel like those came in earlier and have already been addressed. So if we don't have any other questions, I'll give it one more second. All right, I think we're probably good to round it out. I totally appreciate everybody's taking the time to join us today. And thank you to IFA for hosting. And I'll turn it back to you, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Damien and Nicole. This was excellent content and excellent feedback from all of you. We really do appreciate it. Again, this webinar was recorded, and along with the presentation deck will appear on our website early this evening. You'll be able to find that at community.franchise.org. Thank you very much again to Damien, Nicole, and the SOCi team. Make sure to be on the lookout for our next 2 installments of this series coming in June. And again, thank you to everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe and healthy. Bye.